Is Chiori set to fail before her banner's even released? Let's find out. Chiori increases her damage by scaling attack and defense substats, making her one of the rare few characters in Genshin that are a part of a category that we call hybrid scalers. These characters have talents or passives related to prioritizing 2 or more substats effectively to run their desired build, meaning that your character's ability scales with an increase in multiple stats. This is very different from the single stat scaling characters that we typically get, but it sounds interesting, doesn't it? Theoretically, if you invest in stat A and stat B equally, would that be better than just scaling off of a single stat? Well, on paper, it sounds like an interesting idea, but in actual gameplay, it doesn't work very well. A prime example of this would be Dehya. Now, there is a lot of problems with Dehya, but quickly, I'm going to simplify her kit and why it's terrible. She has an ability that damages her, to the point of almost killing her, but don't worry because she has a healing passive to counter this side effect, except that it only works every 20 seconds. Dehya also tanks damage for the active character while not on the field, and stores energy, reducing her health, and if you're asking where that stored energy gets used, that's a fantastic question. Now, unfortunately, her kit works against her in most scenarios, and doesn't increase her damage a whole lot. But something that also contributes to Dehya having low damage output is the fact that she scales HP and attack. Now, it is really difficult to focus on finding a balance between both stats, but let's say even if you did get the perfect artifact set with attack and HP substats, we need to find out what the difference is between both stats in Dehya's kit. Building HP gives Dehya 3 things: more HP regen from her passive, which is useless, more damage absorption from her passive, which is useless, and skill/burst scaling. Meanwhile, building attack on Dehya only benefits her normal/skill/burst scaling. However, the scaling on attack is a lot higher of a percentage than it is on HP. So while focusing on building attack has less benefits, the only thing that it does do well is help Dehya's damage output, more than building a balanced, hybrid scaling Dehya like HoYoverse initially intended for this character. If you hadn't noticed at all, this is a big problem for hybrid scaling characters. One stat will always be better than the other, no matter what scenario you're placed in, because it's impossible to make a character that benefits equally from both stats being perfectly balanced. Meaning that even though you're playing a hybrid stat scaler, you're essentially always given the option of picking the better stat and solely focusing on that, turning your hybrid scaling character into a single stat scaler. And while it may be a remedy for making your hybrid scaler stronger, you will always be forced to live with the fact that you have a dead stat that you will not focus your substats on because it statistically doesn't make any sense. So that entirely disproves that hybrid scaling is better than single stat scaling. Now that you are aware of hybrid scaling overall as a problem for characters, let's address this in the context of Chiori and see how affected she is by this. But first, let's quickly simplify Chiori's kit so we understand how it works. Her skill allows Chiori to dash forward, dealing AoE geo damage, similar to Kaching. After Chiori dashes, she also summons a doll, and if you have a geo construct on the field, it creates a second doll and gives Chiori 20% more geo damage. These dolls attack opponents with AoE geo damage in intervals, similar to Fischl's skill. Chiori's burst, simply put, is just one big slash of AoE geo damage. And lastly, Chiori's combat-related passive allows her doll to deal coordinated geo attacks with the active character for 8 seconds, similar to Raiden's Eye of Stormy Judgment. But does Chiori being a hybrid scaler make her unusable? Now, the thing you need to know about Chiori's kit is that all of her abilities scale off of attack and defense. But we know from our previous insights of hybrid scalers, one stat is always better than the other. And after some research, Chiori's defense and attack scaling has yet to be publicly released. However, according to IGN, IGN, they seem to believe that her defense multipliers will be a lot higher than her attack multipliers. So, in Chiori's case, we'll just have to say that defense is what you want to solely focus on for maximizing your damage. Overall, Chiori is looking to be an off-field sub-DPS. You place a construct, her skill summons dulls, then you switch to the main DPS while her dulls attack with you. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that Chiori's main damage source is from her skill. While her elemental burst could potentially deal a lot of damage, her skill is more prioritized since Chiori's playstyle supports off-field gameplay, meaning that instead of splitting your substat priority between crit rate, crit damage, defense, attack, and energy recharge, we can instead have the freedom to heavily focus on defense and crit stats. And unlike Dehya, Chiori's kit actually lines up to work with her. So the answer is no. Chiori is not set to fail even though she is placed among the other hybrid scalers. But of course, we'll just have to wait and see how her actual gameplay turns out when her banner is finally released. That's all I have to say. See you next time.